Every day, at precisely 7:15 a.m., John Whitaker stepped into the same compartment of the 7:20 train. It was an old train, its upholstery worn, but reliable, and John had ridden it for years. The rhythm of the train's movement was a constant in his life, but for all its predictability, the journey was a lonely one. John's life had settled into a routine as predictable as the train itself. He worked at a nondescript office in the heart of the city, processing paperwork that never seemed to end. The job was unremarkable, but it was the solitude that marked his days. Friends had drifted away, and family had become distant. John was a solitary figure, and the train ride was both his escape and his prison. Each morning John would board the train with his newspaper tucked under his arm, his eyes scanning the headlines he had read countless times before. He would settle into his seat by the window, the same seat he had chosen years ago, and watch the world move past him. The train would start its journey, and John would remain a spectator, never engaging with the people around him. Through the windows, John saw the cities come alive. He watched people rush to work, children wave goodbye to their parents, and lovers share fleeting moments. He saw it all, yet he was never part of it. The glass panes served as barriers, distorting the world into a series of moving snapshots that he could never truly touch. One winter, the weather grew harsher, and the city outside became a blur of snow and gray. John sat by his window, his breath fogging up the glass as he watched the snowflakes dance in the cold air. The usual vibrancy of the city was subdued, and the people seemed more hurried, more distant. John felt a pang of isolation, a feeling he had known for years but had never quite acknowledged. On one particularly frigid day, as the train moved steadily along its route, John noticed a young woman sitting across from him. She was bundled up in a thick coat, her eyes closed as she listened to music through her headphones. John watched her, noticing how serene she looked despite the chaos outside. For a moment, he wished he could be as peaceful, as unburdened. The train stopped at a station, and the woman opened her eyes, glancing around. John saw something in her eyes, perhaps curiosity, or maybe a hint of sadness that mirrored his own. She glanced at him briefly, and for a split second, their eyes met. John felt a strange connection, a fleeting moment of shared understanding. But before he could muster the courage to speak, the train jolted forward, and the woman was lost among the departing crowd. Days turned into weeks, and the cold weather persisted. John found himself becoming more introspective, more aware of the world he was missing. He started to notice the small details, the way the light played on the snow-covered rooftops, the way people hurried with purpose and direction, the way life seemed to continue unabated by his presence. One evening, as the train neared its final stop, John saw the young woman again. She was seated in the same spot as before, her eyes closed as if in contemplation. This time, John felt a stronger urge to reach out. The loneliness that had once been his shield now felt like a heavy burden he could no longer bear. As the train slowed, John gathered his courage and stood up. He approached the woman, his heart pounding in his chest. She opened her eyes and looked at him with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. John took a deep breath and said, "Hi, I see you on this train often. I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm John." The woman's expression softened and she offered a gentle smile. "I'm Emily," she replied. "I've seen you too, but I didn't think to say hello." For the first time in years, John felt a sense of connection, a glimmer of hope that the loneliness he had endured could be replaced with something more. They talked for the remainder of the journey, sharing stories and laughter that seemed to warm the cold winter air. As the train approached its final destination, John felt a pang of regret that the ride was ending, but also a profound sense of gratitude for the moment they had shared. The next day, and every day after, John found himself looking forward to the train ride with renewed anticipation. The routine was still there, the same old train and the same old route, but now there was a new element, a sense of connection, a reminder that the world outside the windows was not as distant as he had once believed. In time, John and Emily's friendship grew into something deeper, a companionship that bridged the gap between the lonely train ride and the vibrant life beyond. John learned that sometimes the key to breaking free from solitude was not in the train ride itself, but in the courage to reach out and connect with the world moving just beyond the window. And so, the lonely train ride that had once been his prison became a journey of rediscovery, a testament to the power of human connection and the simple yet profound impact of a shared moment in the midst of a vast and bustling world.